You want a successful career? You're going to have some serious work ethic. The American author and philosopher Aldo Leopold once said, "Ethical behavior is doing the right thing when no one else is watching, even when doing the wrong thing is legal." For our purposes, let's take out the legality and wrong versus right perceptions. For the purpose of work ethic, the belief is that if I work hard and do the right thing, I'll get what's coming to me. Now, if you've heard any podcast or seen any videos where I talk about networking, you probably couldn't avoid but hear me say that you should network organically and do things for other people rather than ask them to do things for you. Well, the same is true for work ethic. You should work hard or do the right thing while working because it's the right thing to do, not because you expect others to give you stuff if you do it right. Here's a perfect example of how hard work and doing the right thing paid off in an amazing way for me. I met my friend and amazing drummer Randy Cooke around 2005, if I'm not mistaken. I first saw him while he was playing a gig with none other than today's guitarist for Bon Jovi, Mr. Phil X. If you've ever seen or heard Randy play, you'd be as blown away as I was. And even though we didn't really connect that night, I found myself rehearsing with him a few months later in some other band. When I saw firsthand, up close and personal, just how good he was at his job and how nice he was, I clicked with him right away and we've been friends ever since. As the years went by, Randy called me to play a few gigs that he was doing that needed a guitarist. He'd been impressed by my work ethic and always called me for the gig. I'm not saying I was the only guy he called, far from it, but the point is I left an impression of a guy that does the job right. I remember one specific time when Randy had me come and play in a band that had songs in multiple different guitar tunings. When I showed up to rehearsal, I had a bunch of guitars and he asked me, "What's all this about?" I told him I brought everything to get the job done perfectly. All my guitars were tuned for each song and ready to go. All my presets for the correct tones from the album were all ready to go at the push of a button. I was ready. I remember he told me, "Keep doing that and you'll go far." What he meant was, keep that work ethic and doing the right thing for the gig and for the other musicians and you'll go far. Sure enough, years later, Randy recommended me for an audition I got with Down in Alec, as well as bringing me on the Smash Mouth gig in 2011, a gig I'm still doing to this day. I'm sure you've heard it before, but I'm so thankful for Randy for making my career what it is today. Speaking of Canadians, here's a story with one other one I already mentioned, Phil X. If you don't know the story behind this guy, you gotta look him up. I talk about him and my first time seeing him play in my video, You're Never Gonna Make It. We had been friendly and met on a few different occasions over the years at his gigs and parties, especially since he was still super tight with Randy Cooke. Anyway, I want to say it was 2009, there was a company called Grooveworks in town that did ID tags and branding for companies, amongst other things, all in the music format, I believe. At that time, they were working for an Austrian radio station called Hitradio Udrai. Let me say that again so you can hear how good I say this. Hitradio Udrai. Once they got hired, they reached out to their in-house composers to work on very specific and targeted music tracks for the client, the radio station. And guess what? For whatever reason, probably Randy, Phil X put my name in to be one of the in-house composers. So they called me, and I started working with them. Here's a tiny taste of something I did for them so you get an idea of what it was. My job, as far as I was concerned, was not only to do amazing with this new company so I get more work from them, but also to do whatever I do when someone refers me to a gig. I worked triple hard to make sure they look like rock stars for referring me, and it worked. I remember listening to the conference call where the client in Austria was listening to all the tracks and commenting on what changes they wanted, etc. So they said, "This Hurwitz composer, who is he? This is the first time we're hearing his stuff. We love it. We'll take it as is, no changes needed, and please have him do more cuts." Grooveworks had mentioned to them that the composer they knew for quite some time, Phil X, had recommended me. So I made Phil look great, I made this new company look great, and I got the client asking me to write and produce more tracks for them. Since then, I worked with Grooveworks on a handful of other projects for radio stations and TV stations in Europe over the years, and it was always fun and challenging. Phil also put my name in for other projects as well as the Daughtry auditions back in the day. I'm very thankful to him for all those opportunities. Here's one last story for you. Many people ask me how I got to Enrique Iglesias from Smash Mouth, and the answer is work ethic and Eddie Caipo, who isn't Canadian, so it kind of ruins the momentum here. When I started playing with Smash Mouth in 2011, I had 3 days to learn the material. On the 4th day, I had a flight up to rehearse with the guys, and then on the 5th day, we took off to Iraq and Kuwait for my first run with Smash Mouth in front of our troops in the Middle East. Eddie was the sound engineer, production manager, and tour manager for that tour. If you haven't had a chance to check out our chat, here's a link to it. There's definitely a lot to learn from this guy. Anyway, when I came in for the rehearsal, everyone was pretty happy with my work. In fact, we didn't even get through the one rehearsal we had planned. I played like 5-6 songs out of 23 I'd learned, and they said, "Sounds good, let's go eat." At a certain point during those first few days, I said to Eddie, "Hey dude, you've been with the guys for a while. I've seen and heard your work. You're pretty meticulous. Please, let me know if there's anything I can do on my end to do a better job for you guys. I've got zero ego and I'm also a sound engineer, so just tell me if something needs to be louder, lower, played differently, maybe add some feedback to a delay and compress something more or less. Anything you want, just let me know. I'm just doing my best to respect and accurately replicate the tones and playing style of the OG Greg Camp." Eddie and I are very close, and he's since told me on a few occasions how that approach and work ethic really resonated with him. Years later, when he had joined the Enrique Iglesias camp as a monitor engineer, I told him I'd love the opportunity to play with Enrique if it ever comes up. Sure enough, in 2015, he told me lead guitarist Emmett was leaving after a long time with the band and needed to be replaced. He asked me if I'd like him to throw my name in the hat, and I said, hell yeah, and the rest is history. Well, I guess if you don't know me, the rest is not history. I got the gig, and I toured with Enrique for years and years and years. I couldn't have done that without my boy Eddie, and because he put his faith in me and my work ethic, I had a chance to play in front of millions and millions of people worldwide with the Enrique camp over many years. I can't thank him enough. As you see, hard work can pay off, but don't do it to get to the next gig. Do it on the gig you're on now, because you were lucky enough to get it, and it deserves the best work you can do now. And if one thing leads to another, and you find yourself rocking those arenas, make sure to thank the people who got you there, and keep doing amazing work. Like, sub, comment. Catch you next time.